Welcome to the June 14th ANC 5D meeting. The time is 7:05 p.m. Thank you all for joining us on what looks to be a very nice day outside. Hopefully we can get done on time so that we can enjoy the last of the sunset. Again, thank you for making time and coming tonight. My name is Don Roberts. I'm the chair of the commission, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. The time is 7:04 p.m. Secretary Claus, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Petty Day Lewis, Keisha Shropshire, Adam Roberts,
Present.
Bernie Blacknell, present, Kathy Henderson,
Present.
Clarence Lee,
Present.
and I'm Yvonne Bud.
And by my count, we have 6 commissioners present, 4 are required for quorum. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right. Great. First up is to adopt the agenda. Are there any, I'm aware of one change to the agenda for everyone who should have gotten an agenda. If you didn't get one when you came in, the agenda is at the back table, as well as all the documents that we're going to be voting on tonight. And if you would please sign it, we'd certainly appreciate it. The one change I am aware of to the agenda is item number 16. Commissioner Lee requested to remove that from the agenda. Unless there are any other changes to the agenda, I'll move that we adopt. Commissioner Henderson.
The commission will not be able to vote on any items tonight because the meeting notice was sent out on June 8th, which is less than 7 days' notice as required by law.
That actually is correct. Commissioner Henderson, Secretary Clark was going to address that when we get to her item, but there will be a special meeting approximately 2 weeks from today to ratify the votes taken tonight. And we adopt the notice. So thank you for raising that.
Just a question. Is there a reason why we couldn't get the meeting notice out on time and why they've not been posted in single member districts as required?
Well, they're actually not required to be posted in single member districts. I can't address the question about
But they are required to be posted in at least two manners. And can you tell us what they are?
That's actually not my responsibility, but the secretary might be able to address that.
It was an oversight, for this, for posting the meeting.
Are there any other additions to the agenda? Great, I'm gonna go ahead and move that we adopt the revised agenda with number 16 removed. Is there a second?
Second.
We're moving properly seconded. All 4, please say aye.
Aye.
All against? Is that a yes? You're
It's
against?
against.
Great, and any opposition? Excuse me, any abstentions? So I count that passes 5-1-0. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the chairperson's report. This is just a report of documents that have gone out as authorized by the commission, documents that we have received from agencies or developers or for example, the Alcohol Beverage and Licensing Group, as well as an apparently updated list of upcoming events. My apologies for that. And lastly, at the very bottom, we've been collecting these monthly feedback forms at every meeting since February. This is how the commission in our committee of the whole meetings determines if we are meeting our sort of performance objectives, or are we actually serving our purpose well. And as you can see, for the last couple of months, we have collected those statistics since February. We had a total of 3 respondents last time. So again, I'm just going to make a shameless plug. If you could please fill it out and turn it into the box that was back there.
It's over here.
Jack, on that last table, if you could please fill it out and just turn it in on your way out. We really use that data to try and improve what we're doing here and make sure we're using that appropriately. In terms
Mr.
of,
Roberts?
I still have the floor. In terms of documents that were sent and received, just to name those, the meeting minutes have been posted through April 2016. We have sent zoning commission letter support for case number 1524. We also submitted a stipulated letter support for a baby B&B alcohol license at Union Market. And lastly, I'm not going to read all of them, but there are 9 items under zoning and public space. These are all notices that we have received from government agencies that can require the commission's action if the commission so chooses. The ones that are bolded are the ones that apply directly to the commission. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Question.
Commissioner Anderson.
Well, 2 questions. 1, are you sending these documents to all commissioners? And 2, how is the commission meeting its performance criteria if the meeting notices are not going out correctly? The commission hasn't spent any money. The commission has not approved a budget, even though we've had the same treasurer since January of 2015. So please clarify that.
Absolutely happy to clarify. So I want to make sure I understand all your points. So all of the questions that you're asking, your first question was what again?
I'll repeat it. How is the commission meeting its performance criteria if the meeting notices are not going out timely? This is not the first time that this has happened. This is one of many times, many lapses. Also, you know, the commission has not approved a budget, even though the commission has had the same treasurer since January 2015.
All right, so this will be the last question due to time unless someone moves to extend. So I think I'm hearing your question is, how are we determining that the commission's performance, I actually didn't say that it's good, but if that's what you're implying.
You're referencing the survey.
I am referencing the survey. The questions around the survey were developed at committee of the whole meetings, to which we've not had you attend, but you are always welcome to attend. Those questions are what the committee that was at that meeting decided they wanted to measure. We've measured the exact same questions since February. If you think that these questions are inappropriate, by all means, please consider.
I don't think you responded to the question.
I'm actually trying to answer it. You are always welcome to raise emotions and add questions to that. We're happy to add it if the commission approves it.
And again, I've already shared with you, and thankfully you corrected the minutes from the last meeting. But I've already shared with you that I'm not receiving the notices, and you've not corrected that.
Okay, I would like the opportunity to finish answering the questions you asked.
Please do, and answer responsibly, please.
If you have a question about the budget, you are always again free to raise a motion to adopt a budget. I cannot be treasurer. If you have that question, I'm going to ask the director treasurer answer that question, as I assume that person is responsible for that. Are there any other?
We're
We are
not
out of
meeting on
time.
performance measures.
So with that, unless there are any other motions to extend debate, go ahead and move to the next item. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Commissioner Sharp?
We've had no transactions in our, bank account, and our balance is currently $73,543.84.
Can you repeat that?
$73,543.84. This includes a, district deposit of $4,082.66 for the last.
There are no questions. Move on to the next item. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the meeting minutes. Commissioner Boats?
I move to, have the meeting minutes for May 10th, 2016, adopted.
I'll second. We moved in properly second, that we adopt the meeting minutes as they were distributed. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Commissioner Anderson?
Given that you acknowledged that the meeting notice went out late, which results in the fact that the public and the commissioners have received less than the required 7 days notice, why are you conducting a vote on any item that is on the agenda?
So I'll restate what I say at the beginning, Commissioner Henderson. We are gonna vote on items tonight, and there will be a special meeting where we will confirm the votes that we took tonight. Let me finish. The votes that we're taking tonight, we fully recognize, are not legally binding until they're adopted at a duly noticed public meeting. The error has been acknowledged, and the error is being addressed. If you have questions about public information, I might direct you to all of 2015, where the commission did not receive agendas from the chair until the day of the meeting. So I think we're doing a better job than we were last year.
Agendas from the chair are very different from meeting notices. And we had the same secretary in 2015 who also failed to send out the meeting notices timely.
Thank you, Commissioner Henderson. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, there's no further discussion.
Why are we voting
It's
if it has to be affirmed at a special meeting?
We are conducting a vote.
It doesn't make sense.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the meeting minutes as distributed. All four, please say aye.
Aye.
I count 5 ayes, all against.
Opposed?
I count 1 against. The vote passes 5-1-0. All right, next up on the item, we're gonna get out of the commission business for a little bit, and if Director Schroeder would like to have the floor. Thank you for being here, Director Schroeder.
Absolutely.
For
And very happy to be here. Thank you, commissioners, for the invitation, and thank you all for having me here tonight. My name is Chris Shorter. I am the director of the DC DPW. For those of you who don't know DPW, we are one of the primary municipal service agencies in the district. We provide solid waste management, fleet management, and parking enforcement services here in the district. Some of you've gotten this dashboard. This dashboard I get basically every week from the staff, and it shows you basically what I've just said. The first 3 boxes on the left of the document show you solid waste, some of the services in solid waste, fleet management, and parking enforcement. I'd like to sort of make sure you notice the number of citations that have been issued since October 1 in the district. It's quite a few citations, and really this is an output document. The number of services we're providing, and then the method in which we're providing. Below that third box is this sort of 311 service request. These are the top service requests that we get each week through 311. And so I'd also like to mention to residents that for us, 311 is the way that we are measuring how quickly we are able to provide a service. And so while I get a lot of emails saying this 311 service request is closed and the service is not provided, I'm able to go back and track down what went wrong. And so when I get emails directly where no service request has been entered, there's no time frame, right? So I can't measure how quickly we were able to respond versus calling 311 or using the app and me being able to say, this has been open for 2 weeks, or it's been open for 24 hours. It was closed inappropriately, right? And so this is DPW by the numbers, and I'm really, as best as I can, managing the agency by the numbers. And so we'll talk a lot about 311 tonight in terms of me responding to questions, but just by way of announcements, I want to make sure I remind you, for those of you who have family members, neighbors, who called in at the beginning of the snow season to get an exemption from the sidewalk shoveling law, that's an annual process. So make sure you tell your neighbors, your family, friends, that if you're 65 years old or have a physical disability, then you can be exempted from the sidewalk shoveling law here in the district, and that you would call 311 every year to get registered around October, November. For those of you who signed up for volunteers, or there's someone who needed a volunteer to help shovel the walk, that's also an annual registration process. So you'll call back in to 311 again at the end of this year, closer to winter, to get registered again. We also have what we call hardship program, where our trash and recycling crews will bring your trash can and your recycling bin right up to your front door. Again, for those who are over 65, who are 65 years and over, or have a physical disability. That program is actually not an annual registration program. So once you're registered in that program, you're in the program until something changes, the hole is sold, you move out, or some other event occurs. If you know someone who needs that help, please do have them call into 311, get registered with us. You'll be directed to DPW, and we'll register you in the program. A few other announcements, and then I'll open it up for questions. The leaf season. So this past leaf season, we made a number of changes to the way that we collect leaves. In past seasons, we would essentially give ourselves 14 days. So we would say, we're going to come to your area on November 1st. We would give ourselves until November 14th to come to your neighborhood to collect leaves. That would cause all kinds of problems, namely, the leaves would be all over the place, right? If you break them up on November 1st, we don't get there until November 14th. There are leaves everywhere. And so we've cut that in half, and we provide 2 notices. One at the beginning of leaf season, we send a mailer to every home giving you the calendar for collection. Both passes in your neighborhood. On the second pass this past season, we actually went door to door with door knockers, and we left door knockers to remind residents that we were coming back for a second pass the following week. That proved to be very effective. And just I mean, by the third or fourth week into leaf season, most people have lost or thrown away that initial brochure. So reminding residents that we're coming back again proved to be very effective. We will do that again in the coming leaf season. By way of announcement, so a few weeks ago we started what we are calling graffiti wipeout around the district. That was during National Public Works Week, and so we started about 3 weeks ago, and we're continuing that effort. It's a 6-week program where we are still responding to 311 service requests for graffiti, but we are also we've added to the abatement teams and are going around in every ward throughout this 6-week period, wiping out graffiti wherever we see it or wherever there are reports of it. Also during that week, we held what we call the 5,000 event. So you were there. We partnered with a group called Feedback from the UK, and we used food that would have been discarded to feed over 6,000 people. What I mean by discarded is not food that we picked up out of the trash, but food that would have been thrown away by a grocery store because it wasn't perfect, right? Because the carrot wasn't straight or the tomato had a dent in it, right? And so we used that food to feed, again, about just over 6,000 people, really to send a message that we waste a lot of food. And that is having an impact around waste management system. It's certainly having an impact on the amount of waste generated here in the district. And so right after that event, that afternoon, we had a series of panel discussions with experts from across the country to talk about composting and other methods of reducing the amount of waste that we generate in our households. So DPW is definitely a part of that conversation, and you will see much more in the coming years and months from the district in terms of how we reduce the amount of waste we generate, food waste and organics included, but also how we dispose. So starting citywide composting programs and other methods of disposing of waste in a clean and safe way. All right, so I'll stop there and open it up for questions if there are any. Please.
Well, first, let me welcome you and let me commend you for the level of responsiveness that you provided. Overall, to the city, the snow management was just top notch. This is the best snow removal event we've had in the 35 plus years that I've been a district resident. And let me also commend you for your staff members, Mr. May, the addition of Ms. Duffy. She comes well recommended, she serves you well.
Yes.
And overall, you've been very responsive. However, it is with great displeasure, that I have to bring up some additional issues to you. As I indicated earlier, there's a public safety crisis within ANC 5B and 5, and that as soon as we clean the trash, as you all clean the trash up, it's back out there, and we need ongoing enforcement. Some of my residents on Bennett Place have reported, seeing people hide guns in the super cans. So I've also asked that, unfortunately, the citizens receive a $75 ticket. It's not something that I want, but we really need those super cans to come out of the alley. The trash cans that you all have provided, 2 of them, the latest 2 on I Street, the 1800 block of I Street and 1900 block of I Street, are not being picked up because I'm assuming they're not on your schedule. So I would simply ask that you redouble your efforts, not because you're not doing the work. You are doing the work, and I have the photos, to prove it. But even though you are doing the work, I still have graffiti issues. I still have issues like this. People are dumping, and we need to send them a strong message. And this is just one of many photos that I'm happy to share with you.
Sure. So let me explain for those who may not sort of know the agency so well. We have a program that we call SWEEP. It's the Solid Waste Education and Enforcement Program. This program, led by Mr. May, who is here with us tonight, is filled with SWEEP inspectors that have a responsibility to work with businesses, to work with apartments, to work with duplexes, condos, as well as individual property owners, to make sure that they're doing their part in keeping our city clean. And so our sweep inspectors are armed with the enforcement, certainly the enforcement arm, but we are also arming them with a lot of information to educate, especially homeowners and people who are coming to the district who've not lived here before, with information on what they have to do in order to abide by the law in terms of having a recycling contract if you're a business, and if you're a condo owner or apartment complex owner, in terms of making sure there's no loose litter in your property or around your property. So these inspectors, they play a very big role in making sure that our city is safe, clean and healthy. They also are the ones who are digging into the public litter bins, what we call public litter bins, because we have a real problem in the district, not just in this ANC, but in the district writ large, with residents and businesses using the public litter cans for their own private and personal use. And so you see often entire trash bags of trash from someone's apartment or from their home in a public bin. And what that means is that the person walking down the street has nowhere to dump their trash, or they just dump it. And so our inspectors are actually going through, in some cases, going through those litter bins and pulling out mail and sending citations to folks who are not doing their part and who are bad actors, if you will. So duly noted, and we will continue to do sort of what we do in terms of enforcing, but I am really pushing our inspectors to make sure that we're doing the education piece of the enforcement as well, to make sure that our residents and business owners know the law and know what they are required to do in terms of being good stewards and not bad actors. All right. So thank you.
You're welcome, and I wanted to talk to you offline.
Noted. Anything else?
I just want to thank you. I shared this at the meeting last week. I want to thank you again for your response on the graffiti. We've seen very quick response there, and I appreciate that. On the point where you were sharing about residential trash in the trash cans near bus stops, we have a lot of that in my view. One thing that's been discussed in, if inspectors could look at that, that would be appreciated. But one thing that's been discussed in meetings
Are there
past,
specific locations?
19th and Maryland, we've definitely seen folks coming out of the apartment buildings just throwing their trash in there. But one thing that's been discussed is that some folks may not know that that's illegal. I think most reasonable people would know, but in the end, it's not. Has any discussion been had about putting signage on the trash cans to let folks know that it's actually illegal?
We are doing quite a bit. So there's a campaign we call Litter Free DC, and so we've done a lot of work around publicizing kind of what it means to keep our city free of litter, including what our responsibilities are around the public litter bins. I think you're right. There might be an opportunity for us to post some signage actually on the bins, so noted, and we'll take that under advice. There are some restrictions to us posting signs, believe it or not, on the bins. So we'll investigate.
So I have a location where I know that there's residents who are placing their personal trash in there, and I'm not aware if they are aware that it's prohibited. So that's at the corner of Childress and Holbrook Street.
Okay.
And then I had another question about what is the policy or the rule in terms of residential trash cans? Like I know throughout Trinidad, there are very limited public trash cans. I know that there's some down near KIP, and then there's some around the rec center. But are there options to post them throughout neighborhoods?
The public litter bin, thank you for the question. The public litter bins are generally for corridors and not for residential areas because of the time of day that we collect them. There's a noise ordinance in the district that we also hold ourselves to. where we don't like to send our vehicles into residential neighborhoods, especially heavier duty, refuse trucks, at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we're collecting. So we generally, if we receive a request for a new public litter bin, we would take that request, evaluate where that new bin would go, and usually make some determination within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure what the time frame is on whether we could put a bin there. So if you have a specific sort of location where you'd like to see a bin, we'll take it under advisement. But the litter bins, there are a number, so the business improvement districts have bins that they collect litter from, and we support that effort. The parks and rec sites have litter bins that we do not collect, but they all come to our transfer station, and then we collect about just over 8,000 from 8,000 litter bins across the district. So we are always adding to that number, and am happy to consider new locations. But we are very limited in terms of locating in residential areas.
In regards to the parking enforcement, nighttime ticketing of residents for various reasons and not giving a warning as far as, well, that also, because I call it the girlfriend boyfriend. A lot of times people have overnight guests who are frequent, then they're ticketed, and because you count the days, but it's not necessarily the same days in a row. And secondly, I've noticed it like on Trinidad Avenue going all the way up, very observant about that. But I had on Brom Street, and he still parks his truck there. He collects junk cars, and he parks them on Ron Street. He has Maryland tags on his van, and he's parked there every night, and he never gets a ticket.
Yeah.
But residents get tickets for having their friends stay over more than 3 days. And you collected the cars, because the cars were there, the cars were also on the recreation lot. You had abandoned cars, and they clearly marked junk, because they're written on the windshield, they're wrecked. So you did come when I called. Someone came and picked up the cars.
Okay.
But he's still there with his van, a car, like he has a trailer and a van, and then he's parked on Brom Street or Sims.
We take very seriously the removal of private property, even if it's on public space. So a vehicle that may seem like it's abandoned or may seem like it is parked for an extended period of time, if that vehicle has tags that are current, has no citations that are older than 60 days, and is not in error, we cannot remove that vehicle from public streets.
Okay, but see, these cars had no tags and wrecked, severely damaged, total. I guess they were total. And they were just 3 in a row. You didn't remove when I called. Someone came out and removed them, but I know they were just there for like a week.
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying, how come your officers are that absorbent? If I can ride down the street and see them every day, and I watch them ride down when they do street clean sweeps and everything, and so never got ticketed on street clean and sweep, and I watched them stay there literally for a week until I called and somebody came and got them. So I mean, that kind of, but then when my neighbors, if they had friends to come over and stay over 3 days, you jump right on.
Yeah, so there, we do aggressively, we have parking enforcement officers as part of our, what we call ROSA program.
They're good.
And they start at 10 p.m. at night and work through until I believe 6 or 7 a.m. And they are ticketing out-of-state residents who have tags from Virginia or Maryland, and issue a warning initially after the first notice. 30 days after that notice, we issue a warning, and then 30 days after that, I believe, we start issuing citations, and we could issue those daily until you get the appropriate license, or you register in the district. That said, if you're still registered if you're registered out of state and you live in Virginia or Maryland, you would go in and adjudicate that ticket and just prove that you're still living in Virginia or Maryland. What we find though is that a lot of residents don't want to register in the district. And so that program was established to make sure that people who are living in the district get their vehicles registered in the district. And it's actually a very successful program in the sense that we get a lot of complaints about out-of-state vehicles parking in residential areas. And so we do our very best to go out at the time that we find the most vehicles, which is that sort of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. time frame.
I think we have time for one more. Two more, these are the last two questions.
I just wondered if we had a quick second, or maybe if you could share, like, you mentioned the citywide compost initiative. Could you talk here about that a little bit?
Sure, real quick. We are actually in the planning stages right now for establishing a composting site in each ward. Right now, most composting is done at community gardens through DPR. And so DPW will be working, we've received the go-ahead for the FY17 budget to do a feasibility study for doing a composting site in each ward, and we will grow that into a much more comprehensive program.
You know, like, kind of the timeframe, or
It'll
just-
be-
okay.
The feasibility study will happen this budget year, and in FY17, a program will be established. And so we'll be putting out information about the program once it's established.
Two things. First, I want to reiterate the problem with Childress and Holbrook. When I biked by there tonight to come here, there was a couch and chairs, a lot of luggage, things just sitting on the street.
Someone's been evicted.
No, they're at there's a bin there, and everything's around the bin. So it's not in front of a house, it's the corner of the Trinidad Rec Center Park.
Okay.
And the second thing is, we miss Justin. Those of us who could pick up the phone and call him, we heard he was transferred, but do not know who the DPW person is for the programs that are in Trinidad anymore.
I appreciate you saying that.
And if you wanna send him back, that's great.
Ah.
Otherwise, who's the new person?
Very good, thank you.
No, who is the new person? We don't know them, we
The new
can't.
inspector, you want to?
Yes. And I believe that your new person is Darlette Sally.
Or Lynn Sally.
Yes. The people who have Justin now appreciate him.
Yeah, well, he used to come to meetings and there was a lot of engagement and things happened and that has changed.
Excuse me, you said Darlette?
Sally, S-A-L-L-Y.
All right.
In reference to the public urban on the corner of Trinidad and Thames, there are quite a few 4-unit apartment buildings, and from my understanding, it was a building with 4 more units. The building owner is supposed to supply trash pickup and recycle.
That's absolutely right.
But for some strange reason, it's not being done, so that's why there are a lot of big bags of trash and everything that in